My name is Caulfield and I am an accredited executive coach, and I coach professionals at all levels in their career, from management level right up to C-suite, senior executive levels in organisations. And I suppose one of the key things that I noticed that people tend to lack in being very successful, and not even just being very successful, but getting to where they really aspire to be in their career, is lacking what I'm calling grit. And grit is something I'll talk to obviously in a lot more detail, but grit is a word that I use as an acronym for 4 key elements of a model I developed, which I use with my clients to help them to really step forward and take control of their career so they can get to the next level. So a little bit of background to myself. So I spent 20 years in corporate myself, working across different industries, different organisations, both regulated and non-regulated. And during that time, I suppose I did work up through the organisation, but I learned a lot during that process. So I started out from college. I moved up into, obviously going to a junior position when we start out, right, moving up the ranks. And when I left the corporate after 20 years, I'd moved up into senior global management. But throughout that time, it's not like if I didn't have bumps along the way on the road. Certainly not. I mean, there's always going to be bumps along the road. So for me, I suppose, when I got to a point of realising there was something else I wanted to do in my career, I was looking back on my own career and see, well, where did I find that I can help people best? So when I looked throughout my career, I mean, there was time in my career, particularly where there was a plateau in my career, where I knew I was able for a lot more, but I wasn't just getting to where I wanted to go to. And what I found is that the biggest thing that was holding me back was the fact that I was waiting for circumstances to change in my career for me to get on to the next level. But obviously, I actually realised that wasn't going to get me anywhere. And to cut a really, really long story short, it was only when I decided to take leadership of my own career that things actually turned around for me. I wasn't waiting anymore for, my manager or director to say, well, Anne, you know what, there's this job for you, we really want you to manage that for us, or there's this project, we want to put you over here. Because I had that for so many years, and it was easy. I was just stepping up to the next levels all the time. But then it got to a point where that wasn't happening for me anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm not really motivated anymore here. I need to have more of a challenge. I want to get to that next level. But I decided that's not actually going to happen until I take control of it myself. And once I started to do that, everything changed around for me. Everything turned around. But I took some small steps, going to bigger steps in my career. So I left a high-paid job. I moved city. I left my house out to rent. I totally changed I just took a total step into, and I got into a role that I was really looking for. And again, I just put myself out there. I took leadership in myself and my career. There's a lot more to the story than that, but I have to keep it short. But what I realised is that when I actually took leadership for my career, everything started turning around for me, both personally and professionally. And within the space of 3 years of I taking control, I actually got promoted twice up into senior management. I got married and I had my first 2 children. So everything happened all at the same time, which sounds crazy, but to be honest with you, everything just happened to flow. It just felt like everything just clicked into place for me and everything just started working. And that's really what I want to share with you today, and I want to impart on you. It's really up to yourself to take the leadership in your career, and don't be waiting for somebody else to tell you, you know what, you're the right person for that job now. Or don't leave somebody else say to you, actually that's really not for you right now. You need to make your decisions. You need to take leadership in your career, because only you know yourself best. Yes, it's important to take feedback, absolutely, and to grow, but you know yourself best, and you know what's really in here and where you want to get to. So to get into grit, so what if I was to tell you that you have all the experience, you've all the knowledge, you've all the talent that you need to get to where you aspire to be in your career, except for one thing, and that is grit, okay? So you might ask yourself, well, what is grit all about? So this is the acronym I told you about, that I have 4 key elements that I coach my clients in. So the first letter of grit is G for game plan. So the one thing is, we all need to have a game plan in our career. We all need to have a plan of where we're going. But in order for us to have a game plan, the first thing we need to understand is, what is our why? What is driving me? What is my purpose? What do I really want? And some people can think, oh, purpose, that sounds like such a broad, big question. It's not really, because you need to figure out for yourself, what is truly, what do I want it, and why do I really want it? And what's it going to look like when I get there? What's it going to feel like when I actually get there? Because if you don't paint that picture, you're going to be moving in different directions, and you won't really get to where you want to go. And that's where I talk about painting a vision for yourself. No matter where you're at in your career, you need to have a vision. You're not just looking for that next job, that might suit my experience. You're looking forward. You're looking way more forward. You're looking way in advance, and you're saying, well, where do I ultimately want to get to in the next, you can look in the next 5 to 10 years. Where would I love to get to in my career? Because if you don't paint that picture, if you don't create that vision, you're not going to get there. It's like when you're setting off to go somewhere that you've never been to before, and you hop in the car, you're more than likely going to pop into GPS where you actually want to go, right? You're not just going to drive out the gate and off you go and sure, look, if I get there, great. If I don't, that's fine. So you need to apply the same strategy to yourself in your career. So paint that picture of what does it really look like? What's it going to feel like when I get there? What am I going to be doing differently? And what can I do differently actually when I get there? What's the difference? How more fulfilled am I going to be? What kind of lifestyle choices can I make when I get there? That's what you need to be thinking about. And if you think of like the Irish rugby team, like they've had a fantastic game plan, and they've been following that game plan, they've been following their vision, they're so driven. And I was up in the Viva Stadium last week, and I don't know if any of you know Enda McNulty. He's a performance coach with the Irish rugby team, and that's one of the biggest things that they have, is they have this vision. They have this real sense of, we know where we're going and we have a plan to get there. So what happens when you don't have a game plan? So when you don't have a game plan, what happens is you tend to float from one thing to the next. So you're kind of drifting along. You're not really going anywhere specific. You're not really deliberate in where you're going. You're really just floating from one place to the next. And what happens with that is you are going to get random, unpredictable results. So yes, you have an idea of where you might go, but you haven't really clearly defined what you really want. So you're probably not going to get there. You may get there, but you're going to take a really long ways to get there. But you're not even going to be fulfilled and satisfied when you get there, because it's going to be unpredictable. Your performance is not going to be like you really want it to be. So that's not where you want to be, right? You want to have that game plan and really figure out where you want to go and where you want to be. So, like, the other thing as well is, when you don't have a game plan, we get distracted. So, we haven't really planned where we're going. So we're going to get distracted by somebody saying, oh, well, do you know what? There's a great role over here that we'd like to give to you. That would be great. Is it really for you? You need to think about that. You need to really figure out, is that really what I want in my career? Is that going to bring me in the direction I want to go? Otherwise, what's going to happen is, and this happens an awful lot of people, they'll end up like 10 years down the line, they'll think, I have no idea how I got to this place in my career. Like if I look back when I left college, I wanted to be at this place, I wanted to be in this role, I wanted to have this lifestyle, I wanted to have all these things in my career, but for some reason I'm not there. And why are you not there? Because you didn't have a game plan. So I just ask you in your own mind to think, like, how many of you here today actually have a game plan of where you want to go in your career? Are you really just drifting and you're being distracted by shiny objects? Like, shiny objects mean things that are really not for you, but you think they're for you. Just think about that and think about how you can change that. Now, the next letter, and be mindful, what I'm sharing with you today is something I normally would do in a workshop, a one-day's workshop. So I'm going to give you the key nuggets of it, right? So just take away for yourself. But the second one is R. Now, R stands for something that probably most of you here, you have this today by the very fact that you're here sitting today in Jobs Expo, Galway. And it's something that most people have if they get to a certain place in their career. And even you here being interested, obviously if you're here today, you're interested in getting to the next level in your career, or you're interested in making the next steps. And that is what? It's resilience. So resilience is about understanding challenges. It's about, when you get knocked down, getting back up again. You get knocked down in your career, there's certain changes might happen, different things put you off track. But resilience is really about you taking a step forward and bouncing back from those bumps along the road. Because there's one sure thing, and that is that there's always going to be I don't want any bumps along the way. I just want it to be nice, nice straight road, and otherwise I'm not going to go there. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen because you won't go anywhere if you apply that strategy. There's always going to be bumps along the road. And those bumps along the road are to help you to understand and learn from what you're just doing. So we always need bumps along the road. They're actually there to help us to learn our lessons and move forward to the next thing. But more often than not, a lot of people see those bumps as a way to kind of say, oh, well, you know what, it's not for me. You know, I'm going to quit. I need to do something else. You need to use those bumps along the road to learn and move forward. Now, you might hear a lot of startups and they talk about, okay, we want to fail fast, which might sound ludicrous, right? But failing fast, what they really mean about that is they want to learn as many lessons up front as they can, so that by the time they get to the next level and put more investment into their business, they've learned as many lessons as they possibly can before they get to that point. So that then they're applying those lessons and they're not going to make those mistakes again. So, you know, I work a lot with my clients around helping them with tools and techniques to develop their resilience in their career or in their business. And, you know, and that's very important for people, because when you're going along in your career and as you get more successful, there are bigger bumps along the road. But when you have a set of resilience, you can adjust yourself to those. And you know, if you're in your career in a certain stage, you know, if you're managing a team even, it's easier for you to manage that. And you need to be able to have those tools and techniques to be able to bounce back, so that your team are also bouncing back and you have a very resilient team. Because if they don't see that you're managing these issues, then they're not going to be able to manage them either, and you're going to get stuck along the way. So something very simple that you can apply today, be it in your career, in your job today. Maybe you have a challenging role that you're in right now. Maybe you're thinking about, is this really for me or not? Like, if you think of some simple strategies that you can apply to yourself, some simple strategies that you can apply to help you to get past that obstacle in your career or in your job right now that's really just bringing you down. Because when we're at a stage where we're really challenged by what's happening in our career, you know, we can't see the wood from the trees. You know, we're totally boxed in. We can't see beyond where we are. And what that brings a lot of frustration, it brings confusion, and it brings a total sense of overwhelm. So we can't see this next step forward. So one thing I'll share with you, it's very simple, and it's you need to have your own support network. So maybe that is a peer, maybe it is a friend, maybe it's some family member, it doesn't really matter. But somebody that you know, that you can kind of share what's happening. And sometimes it's better to share that with somebody who doesn't know anything about what you're doing. Because more often than not, they will be able to see much more clearly what's happening here and apply something very simple for you that you'll think, oh my God, like, I should have thought about that myself. But it's purely because you're stuck in the thick of it and you can't see outside of that. So maybe today, maybe you're here because, you know, you're in a situation in your job right now which is quite challenging. You're not sure if that's where you want to be. Think about that. Maybe there's an easier path forward for you. But also maybe you're thinking of changing careers, or maybe you're thinking of doing something different. Then, you know, you need to think about, well, you know, where do I really want to go in relation to where I've been in my career, and how resilient am I? Am I just jumping from one thing to the next all the time? But in actual fact, I don't need to. You know, those bumps along the road are not telling me that I shouldn't be here. It just means they're one of those bumps that I need to learn lessons from. And that's why I talk about persistence. You know, persistence, be persistent, follow. Once you have your game plan, you need to be persistent. We go back to the Irish rugby team. The Irish rugby team, yes, they got knocked over 2 weeks ago against England, but what did they do last week? They bounced right back and they actually won their game. So again, it's about following your game plan, sticking to your game plan once you've that developed, and then having the resilience and the persistence to follow through. Don't just throw in the towel and decide that's not for you. The third one then, actually I was meant to show that yet, I wanted you to guess this, but the third one is actually that feeling you get in your gut. It's that feeling you get in your gut when you know there's something right for you. You really want to go for it, but there's something holding you back. Does anybody know what that feeling is? If somebody read the chart, they'll probably know it anyway. So it's intuition, okay? So that's the feeling, you know, the feeling you get in your gut when you're like, God, yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to have that job. I'd love to have that role. You know, you really, really feel it in your gut. And this is where a lot of people stop again, because they think, okay, yes, I know it's good for me, but, you know, and you have this feeling that like nearly almost catches your shoulders and pulls you backwards. And that's what? So the one thing standing between your intuition, and your intuition is there to tell you what's right for you and what's not right for you. Because you'll also get that feeling in your gut when something's not right for you. You'll think, no, absolutely not, that's not for me. So that's where you need to listen to your gut. And the one thing that's standing between your intuition and actually following what's right for you is what? Fear. And fear is something that stops so many people from getting to where they really know they should be, where they know they're capable of being in their career, but they choose to listen to fear as opposed to their intuition. So what I encourage people to do is, when they're wanting to step forward in their career or do something different, they want more of a challenge. They know they're capable of so much more than where they are right now in their career. I encourage people to take that one small step outside your comfort zone, just one step at a time. That could be anything. So if you're in your career and you're in an organization, it's something different for everybody. But maybe it's like taking that one step forward and saying, okay, I'm actually going to present this presentation on Friday to my team or my senior leadership or whatever that is. I'm just going to do it. And just commit yourself, I'm going to do it, right? Because the thing is, when you take that one step outside your comfort zone and you actually do it, afterwards you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm glad I did that. And that's going to fill you with the confidence you need to take the next step forward and the next step forward, but you need to take that one step. Maybe it's that job interview. You're like, oh my God, I hate interviews. I don't want to do it. But you know what? I'd love that job. But you're allowing that one fear to get in your way of getting to where you know you're very well capable of performing. So it's taking that step forward, just going forward and saying, yes, I'm going to apply for that and I'm going to go for the interview and do my very best. And you know what? Sometimes I use the analogy of going to the doctor and, who likes going to the doctor to get an injection? Nobody does. And I think we're supposed to be getting the flu vaccination or something at the moment. But if you think about that for a minute, like nobody will voluntarily go to the doctor to get a needle stuck in their arm, right? Okay. But at the end of the day, you know it's right for you. You know it's better for you. But you're like, I'm not sure if I want to do it. But look, you go ahead and you go and do it for yourself because you know it's right for you. You know it's the right thing to do. But you go into the doctor, you're thinking about it, and you're like, oh God, I really wish I didn't have to do this. You go in, you sit down, and before you know it, what happens? Prick in the arm, and before you know it, it's all over. It's the very same thing when you're stepping outside your comfort zone. It literally is, that uncomfortable feeling is actually more uncomfortable before you do the thing than actually when you're actually doing it. So you actually will feel worse before you do it than when you actually step out there and you actually do it. Because it's the first prick of the needle, and then what happens? You'll walk away after and think, God, what was the big deal about it? What was the big deal? I actually so did that. And in order for you to be successful in taking that step, that's where you need to give yourself a bit of a break. And you need to kind of say, okay, well, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to step forward and do the best job I can do and learn from what you can learn from it. So that's intuition. And it's following your passion, as I say here. Following your passion of what you really know what's right for you and making sure you follow through on that. And don't kind of think, oh, but that's ludicrous. That's crazy, that idea. There's something in there. And it may be just the start of an idea that's very important for you, but don't ignore it. And especially if it's something that's coming back to you over and over again, you need to listen to that intuition because more than likely it's taking you in the right direction. And the last letter of the GRIT model is T. And T stands for trust. And trust, to be honest, is the foundation for, honestly, it's the foundation for everything you'll do. Everything you'll do in your life in general, both personally and professionally. But first of all, you need to trust yourself. So you need to trust yourself around what you know is right for you. You need to trust your team members. You need to trust your organization. Everybody needs to trust each other in order for you to be able to go back here and set a game plan, be resilient, follow your intuition, and get to where you want to go. But I'm going to ask you 3 questions here today, right? 3 rhetorical questions. So don't answer them out loud or anything like that. But they are serious questions. And the first question I really want you to ask yourself is do you trust yourself? The second question is, do you trust your team members? If you're in an organization or if you're in whatever business you're in right now, do you trust those around you that you work with? And the third question is, do your team members or the people that you work around with, do you believe that they actually trust each other? And do they trust you? Because that is so, so important. And I'm going to hopefully assume that let's assume we all answered yes to that question, right? Because if you answer yes to that question, what happens? What happens is you have people coming to work every day, doing the best they can do, showing up the best the way they can be, and also, most importantly, they will know when to ask for support. They will know when to ask questions. But the first thing you need to do is you need to trust yourself. Unless you actually trust yourself, you won't be able to trust anybody else. And nobody else will definitely not trust you if you don't trust yourself. Because people can see that in others. Even though they don't know what it is, if you don't trust yourself, people can't actually trust you. So that is one of the key elements I will share with you today is really, making sure that, you have patience, and patience is very important in trusting others because, trust is not developed overnight. You have to build trust over time with people, first of all starting yourself and then taking yourself forward. So I was thinking about how I could apply the GRIT model to something that's actually happening today. So I was thinking about, I'm sure you're all loving watching the news at the moment with the whole Brexit thing going on. But anyway, So I just thought I'd apply that because I don't think there's anybody that can avoid knowing what's going on in Brexit, or at least know that it's happening at the moment. But I was thinking about Theresa May, and I was thinking, well, how is she applying this grit model? So the first one, in relation to game plan. So with game plan, so look, I think there's universal agreement that there hasn't really been a game plan around Brexit. There has been no game plan. And, unfortunately, she's needed much more complex plan in place to get to where she wants to be, but she hasn't had that, and that's very clear. The second one about is resilience. Now, to be fair to the Prime Minister, she certainly has had resilience in spades. She's had a huge amount of resilience, but unfortunately, that has been there to make up for the lack of a game plan, for the lack of a real complex game plan, which she needed to deal with such a horrendously complex issue. That's a piece on resilience. Intuition. So intuition, well, this is an interesting one because it's bizarre to think that 2 years ago she voted to remain, and now even though she has actually promised the British electorate to implement Brexit, she actually voted to remain 2 years ago. So that will make you think, is she following her intuition? Maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe that's why she's having so many issues. And the last one is trust. So where do we start? When her cabinet colleagues are possibly leaving her, at one point they were leaving like every single day, then you know that you've got trust issues. And that's really like a very, very quick summary of how you apply today the grit model and how it's happening in Brexit and how things are not working out for the pure reason of all of these elements not working in synchronicity together. So to summarise then, folks, I suppose the one thing I would share with you today, and I'd ask you to do for yourselves, is first of all, is to develop yourself a very clear game plan.